So there's been a lot of talk about Jorge Masvidal lately. So in the welterweight division, you got an interesting picture, right? You got Leon Edwards as your champion. He knocked out Kamaru Usman in their rematch. He was losing the fight. He got the head kick knockout. He's your champion. Kamaru Usman is rumored to be having hand problems. Apparently he's going to have hand surgery. He's had this before. It sounds like he's having it again. So that's going to sideline him for a little bit, assuming that that's true. It seems as though that's true. Now, right now, Leon Edwards has one person in his brain who he wants to fight for the title. That is Jorge Masvidal. Meanwhile, you have Gamebred, who wants to fight for the title. You know he doesn't want to face a wrestler. But does this make sense? Should this be what happens for the welterweight title? I don't think so. So let's dissect this a little bit more. Okay, you got Jorge Masvidal. He's coming off of 3 losses in a row. 3 losses. You can't give a guy a title shot after he loses 3 times. He lost twice to Kamaru Usman. The second was a devastating knockout. And then he lost to Colby Covington, which he just got completely outclassed for 5 rounds. Before that, that's when he had the 3-fight win streak in the revamp of his career. Nate Diaz, Ben Askren, Darren Till. And the Darren Till fight is interesting because that's where Leon Edwards and Jorge Masvidal have some history. So that fight took place in England. It was headlined by Till and Masvidal. Masvidal gets the knockout finish, and then backstage during a Leon Edwards interview, there's an altercation, and that's where the 3-piece in the soda comes into it. Masvidal basically just sucker punching Leon Edwards and landing 3 shots on him. So I don't think you can give him a title shot. I mean, you're coming off of 3 losses. 3 losses to 3 beasts. But there are people who are way more deserving than Jorge Masvidal. I'm going to name a few right now. I'm going to name 3 fighters who should be fighting Leon Edwards instead of Jorge Masvidal. And I understand why Leon wants this. This is the big money fight. This is going to give him a big paycheck, and it's an easier fight for him than some of the other guys on this list, I would say. I'm not saying Jorge Masvidal is a walk in the park, but stylistically, I think with Leon Edwards' ability to wrestle, I think the blueprint is out there on how to beat Jorge Masvidal. But Colby Covington, he's got the 1-fight win streak. It's against Jorge Masvidal. Before that, it was the Usman losses. You got a Robbie Lawler fight thrown in there as well. Does he deserve a title shot right now? No. But if you're looking in the welterweight rankings, he makes way more sense than Masvidal. I mean, if you can choose Colby or Masvidal, they fought each other. Colby won. How are you choosing Masvidal over Cody? I don't. Colby, not Cody. Jesus. Wrong division, Mason. But moving on, we have Belal Muhammad, who's riding a sneaky 8-fight unbeaten streak. I say unbeaten because he did have another fight in there against Leon Edwards, which was the draw. There was that really bad eye poke. Why not make Belal Muhammad for the title? I understand he's not the most entertaining fighter. That's the narrative, at least. You see his last fight. It was a banger. The guy's really damn good. Maybe he doesn't talk on the mic the best, but neither does Leon Edwards. Have these 2 guys fight. It makes sense for the sport. 8-fight win streak versus a 10-fight win streak that Leon Edwards has. They have history ever since the no contest that they had. Belal Muhammad has put together 4 wins since then, and he looked spectacular in his last fight against Sean Brady. I think that makes way more sense than Jorge Masvidal. Finally, Khamzat Chimaev. Now, his fight against Nate Diaz was going to be one of those where if he wins, he goes and fights for the title. And it ended up being, that whole thing where he misses weight and the whole card gets shifted around. But he still has a really, really quick submission finish against Kevin Holland at catchweight. Maybe you give him another chance. I'm not saying this makes sense. I'm not saying that Khamzat deserves this. Do I think he's talented enough to get this? 100%. But when you're missing weight, it's not... when you miss weight, your next fight probably shouldn't be for the title, but I'm sure we've seen that before, and I'm sure we'll see that again. I think it makes way more sense than Jorge Masvidal. And then eventually you could do potentially, let's say, Leon Edwards fights Khamzat wins. You can do the Khamzat versus Usman super fight that the UFC wanted to make initially. Leon Edwards, I think eventually he's going to have to fight Usman. I think Usman is owed that rematch. He's been, a champion for a long time in this division. He's been a really, really good fighter, a really good champion. And he was winning the fight up until the knockout. But if he's getting sidelined, I gave you 3 guys right there: Covington, Belal, and Khamzat Chimaev. I think those guys deserve it way more than Jorge Masvidal. Now, if you make Jorge Masvidal versus Leon Edwards, am I watching that fight? You betcha, because it's going to be a fun fight. They're fun fighters. It'd make for a good night of fights, and then there's that beef there. But I just think for the integrity of this sport, you can't make that fight. Those are my thoughts. What do you guys think?